Ready Foods started about 35 years ago in Denver, Colorado by a man named Luis Abarca. Luis began Ready Foods primarily manufacturing Mexican products, some sauces, refried beans, pinto beans, things of that nature. Over time, Ready Foods product line has evolved. We now produce products for a few national restaurants and a few national franchises, as well as some local partnerships we've built with some private label people. So if you have a sauce or a soup, something of that nature you wanted to produce, we can produce that for you at scale, put it into your container, and you can sell that at retail. We were introduced to Process Pro about 7 or 8 years ago. We went through an extensive software vendor search. At a time, we'd been on an older system for about 10 or 15 years that we had honestly outgrown. They have a food background, they speak our language. When we brought other vendors in, they were manufacturing software vendors, but they didn't speak the language of food. They didn't have that background in the food industry. Talking about yields and finished goods and things like that. We didn't have to have a discussion on how our industry was focused. We brought Process Pro in, and with that background in the food industry, it was a seamless conversation to have. The owner of the company, as well as some of his key representatives, came out and visited with us several times. That personal relationship and those on-site visits from Process Pro, helping us build that relationship with our future vendor, was one of the key criteria for us for selecting Process Pro in the end. As we continue to grow as an organization, we're doing more and more transactions. Obviously, the more product you're pushing out, the more raw material you're bringing in. Our suppliers want to know what went into their finished good. We're able to trace that back. What Process Pro has allowed us to do is to get a much tighter control over inventory and our overall manufacturing process. So the beginning of a process for manufacturing a finished good for us would be issuing a purchase order to bring those raw materials in-house, which we're going to allow us to create that final finished good. At Ready Foods, we issue a purchase order. At the time of receipt, our shipping and receiving staff will use Process Pro's AWS to bring that raw material in, identify what should have been received on a PO. We match that up with our system to make sure we are receiving the correct quantities. That allows increased visibility throughout the organization. So if I'm a buyer, I might be in the same plant, or I could be miles away at a different location. I know as soon as that raw material that was on that purchase order has been received, and I've got the correct amount, the correct quantity, in order to prepare whatever the finished good is, so in order to meet my demand. So after we've received our materials, we've closed out our open purchase orders, we then are going to put away our raw material until it's time to use that in the manufacturing process. In the past, we would have just taken that somewhere in the warehouse, put it on the shelf somewhere, and called it good until it was time to use it. What Process Pro has allowed us to do is to kind of break down our warehouses and our raw materials coolers to specific locations. So now we no longer have employees that are wandering around a warehouse looking for where something is. They're able to look it up in Process Pro specifically where it is, use their handheld guns or their scanners to go out to the plant, identify they've got the right information based on the barcode that we've placed on that raw material, and then transfer it somewhere else in the plant. At this point, we use MRP to schedule our work that we're going to do to produce those finished goods. At the production level, the way that works is we produce those batch tickets that will outline to the people on the floor that are doing the production. They'll use Process Pro AWS to go out, pull those raw materials, and then begin the actual processing of those raw materials and go into a finished good. What Process Pro allows us to do is to dictate the expected yield that we expect to get on the raw material. And we also record our actual yield, so we're better able to actually track our cost as well as account for future planning. As we continue to move through that manufacturing process, we've prepped our raw materials, we've weighed things out, we've recorded our yield. All along that manufacturing process, there's also been some data entry taking place, predominantly through AWS to get that information directly into Process Pro at the point of transaction. And now we continue moving along to produce that finished good. Moving through the cook process, we'll do some more data entry, some more recording of weights, yields, things of that nature. From a quality assurance perspective, as we're doing quality testing on our finished good, we'll also place that quality assurance testing information into Process Pro, which allows for full traceability. If I have an issue with a finished good, I can use my QA recording that I've done in Process Pro to look up to make sure the testing I've done met our standards. Did it exceed our standards? Was it out of specification? Something that will help me determine what the issue might be with my finished good. So the last step of that manufacturing process would be taking that finished good and putting it into its final container, whether that's something for retail or something that's going to go into food service. We then take that and place it into our case and we prepare it for shipping. Part of that final manufacturing step would be allocating information in the Process Pro that this is exactly how much of that finished good we produced. The other part of that is when we case that product, we're going to identify it with a label with lot traceability information. So it's going to have a barcode. Once that's cased, we then put it into storage, prepare it for shipping, and again, following that same kind of practice that we did when we brought it in. We're going to tell the system exactly where that product, that finished good is within our warehouse, within our cooler, within our freezer, so then when it comes time to sell that case or that product on a shipment order, that we know exactly where it is, and we're following good inventory processes by getting first in, first out. So our oldest product is going to be sure to go out the door first of all, so that we'll always have fresh product on hand to go out to our customers. I'd say probably the biggest key factors that have impacted our business since switching to Process Pro would be speed and accuracy of information. In the past, what may have taken 2 or 3 days to get into our previous system is now instantaneous in most cases, and that accuracy of the information is much, much better than it was before. We are a rapid manufacturer, so 3-day-old information is pretty much worthless information to us at this point. As you can imagine, with those time savings come cost savings. I don't have people out on the floor looking for things anymore. We don't have product that's going to waste because we didn't know where it was or when it got here. So the time equals money, and it's been one of the biggest successes for us with Process Pro.